The United States and the United Kingdom share a long-standing special relationship, as do America and some of its European allies. Yet concerns about free speech continue to surface, concerns that don't just affect British citizens, but also American technology companies, and by extension, American citizens. While Britain's internal decisions are its own, restrictions on speech inevitably ripple outward. Still, both sides cling to the notion that free expression has deep roots in the UK and will endure for generations. And then comes Keir Starmer, colliding with the conversational equivalent of a wood chipper Joe Rogan and J.D. Vance at the controls. The pair dismantled his performance with the precision of a podcast demolition crew. If Starmer has been accused of lacking personality, Rogan and Vance made it clear that his policies don't fare any better. What followed was part roast, part reality check, awkward laughs, brutal one-liners, and a takedown so merciless even marshmallows would start sweating. After this, Starmer may need more than a rebrand, he may need witness protection. In another exchange, discussion turned to nuclear threats. The question, which Islamist country might be the first to obtain nuclear weapons? Iran? Pakistan? The conversation spiraled into dark humor with the punchline that maybe it's actually the UK now that Labour is in charge. The joke stung because Starmer, Britain's most human-shaped fog machine, had just been shredded and packaged into irrelevance. Rogan and Vance, two men with very different styles, but the same allergy to nonsense, exposed the hollowness at the center of his campaign. What makes it worse? J.D. Vance, who sometimes sounds like he was assembled in a Midwest garage out of libertarian spare parts, made more sense about UK politics than the man vying to be Prime Minister. Meanwhile, Rogan pointed out that thousands of people in England have been arrested for what they've said online. Not for threats, but for words deemed offensive. In a nation with such a proud tradition of free speech, this crackdown is not just startling, it's alarming. Starmer, however, seems determined to turn dullness into strategy. His speeches drone on like a faulty AI, trained on expired tax forms, draining energy from the room until even the wallpaper looks embarrassed. His campaign isn't driven by passion or policy, but by atmosphere, the soggy, uninspired atmosphere of a damp rice cake left in a puddle. It's less a movement than a slow, tragic slump wrapped in a suit. And yet, he insists this is leadership on the world stage. In truth, it looks more like bowing to global corporations and international elites, leaving ordinary citizens behind. Critics at home aren't convinced. Some of his own allies whisper the obvious. Is Keir Starmer simply too boring to be Prime Minister? His reply? That the only boring thing is opposition. But in the hands of Rogan and Vance, that answer just added fuel to the fire. They didn't just critique him, they exposed him. It's nonsense when a politician runs on recycled soundbites, and within minutes, Rogan is asking the obvious, how can one man be both spineless and stiff as a board? Keir Starmer somehow radiates indecision and smug certainty at the same time, like he's leading a revolution only if it's been pre-approved by a focus group, stamped in triplicate, and guaranteed not to offend the Liberal Democrats. Officially the Prime Minister, in reality, he's a foggy screensaver of disinterest, boring the country into submission while tanking it all the same. People can't stand him, and it's tragic, because Britain used to mean something. J.D. Vance, watching like a reluctant binge viewer of Parliament TV, skewered him perfectly. Starmer took over from Corbyn like a substitute teacher walking into a classroom already on fire, his grand plan being little more than copying the Tories, apologizing more, and blinking less. His entire emotional range resembles a loading error, his speeches flatlining through any detector you'd plug them into. Rogan, trying to decode it all, looks ready to rupture a vein, because this isn't leadership. It's middle management damage control in a collapsing office tower. Starmer has built a political identity around not offending anyone, which ironically is the only offensive thing about him. He could walk into a room full of toddlers and still poll lower than the fire alarm. Every time he speaks, the country exhales a collective sigh. Is this really the guy? He campaigns like a malfunctioning AI buffering between ideologies, never standing for anything, but hovering near everything, flitting from progressivism to technocracy with the conviction of a confused hummingbird. If leadership had a Tinder profile, Starmer would swipe right on everyone, ghost half of them, and deliver a bland speech on shared values while quietly editing his policy document. Even his so-called principles on free speech collapse into safe cliches. Yes to expression, no to incitement, and no clear stance on anything in between. Meanwhile, in Britain itself, a man was charged simply for silently praying outside an abortion clinic, a reminder that free expression is in retreat across Europe while Starmer dithers. In the end, no one flip-flops quite like him. Democracy has many faces, but Starmer's is the one that sighs, hedges, and apologizes its way into oblivion. Keir Starmer changes direction more often than a Roomba stuck in a circular room. If he had a spirit animal, it would be a weather-vane mid-midlife crisis during a Category 5 hurricane. He's a political shapeshifter, except all the shapes are made of lukewarm jelly. One day he's waving at striking workers, like he just remembered what a union is. The next, he's on LinkedIn pitching fiscal responsibility like a TED Talk titled, How to Kill Momentum with Spreadsheets. His promises resemble toddlers' art projects, made with enthusiasm, lacking context, and destined for the recycling bin. His idea of vision is photocopying Tory policy, doodling a red heart in the corner, and declaring it bold change. Even J.D. Vance, who can smell a political cop-out from across the Atlantic, was left slack-jawed as Starmer abandoned yet another stance he'd sworn to hold 5 minutes earlier. Watching him articulate a position is like watching political Twister played blindfolded, with 3 left feet and a terror of touching anything remotely red. Each time he loses balance, he shouts, "Consensus." As if that counts. He isn't leading Labour. He's dragging it behind him like a broken shopping trolley filled with unread focus group notes and discarded pledges. Vance nailed it. Starmer isn't offering solutions, just buggy software. Updates slightly newer, still crashing under pressure, and pitched with the charisma of beige wallpaper running for office. While Britain reels from inflation, an NHS on life support, and a housing crisis that feels like a prank gone wrong, Starmer brings the emotional force of a damp sock left in a Travelodge. His answers are sterile enough to disinfect surgical tools. While Rome burns, he schedules a stakeholder dialogue on fire safety next quarter, pending feedback. Every problem gets delayed into a calendar invite labeled Strategic Brainstorm, tentative. Instead of challenging the establishment, he CCs it with a polite cover letter. Leadership for him is a customer support hotline. Tricky, let's circle back next fiscal year. J.D. Vance called it perfectly. Starmer is a masterclass in political dodgeball, a man who could lose himself in a one-way corridor. His bold reform is yet another task force. He approaches change like someone reading IKEA instructions in Latin, hesitant, confused, and ready to quit. And yet he's painted as the safe option. Safe? This man is so risk-averse, he probably checks both directions before entering a revolving door. Britain is begging for vision, and he's offering a crumpled blueprint marked TBD. Even Vance, who looks like he wrestles policy briefs for fun, stared in disbelief and said he couldn't even work out what Starmer stands for. That's not just weak, it's a national crisis with a press secretary. If clarity were currency, Starmer would be bankrupt, desperately applying for a loan at an abandoned think tank. What happens when a political identity is built entirely on press releases, backpedals, and a chronic fear of commitment? You don't get a leader, you get a project manager for national confusion. Keir Starmer's only consistency is his refusal to be consistent about anything at all. Even Joe Rogan didn't have to try. Mocking him was like roasting a paper bag with googly eyes. Rogan joked that Starmer's leadership style makes watching paint dry feel like a rave. Here is a man who claims he's ready to lead Britain into the future, but only after 3 focus groups, a consultation with his inner circle, and a LinkedIn vibe check. J.D. Vance cut deeper, pointing out that Starmer doesn't even have a real base, just a loosely assembled group of people. Dislike the Tories slightly more than they distrust him. His supporters don't cheer, they sigh politely. If enthusiasm were fuel, Starmer's campaign bus would have broken down in a waitress car parked months ago. And when even J.D. Vance, whose entire persona is built on mocking polished elites, looks at Starmer's carefully curated emptiness and says, "Even I wouldn't try that," you know you're in trouble. Starmer isn't defending anyone. He's simply bewildering everyone. Following him feels like staring at a screensaver until you start questioning your life choices. His promises? They appear like rabbits pulled from a magician's hat, except the rabbits are invisible, and the hat is stuffed with shredded manifestos from a fortnight ago. He claims he'll bring bold change, but only in bullet points, only on paper, and only once the status quo gives him written consent. If he were any more cautious, he'd wear a helmet to bed and file a risk assessment before brushing his teeth. Rogan summed it up perfectly. Starmer has mean PC energy, the opposite of a main character, a charisma bypass in a suit. Vance agreed, joking that if this is Britain's idea of leadership, someone should check the room for carbon monoxide. Starmer isn't a threat to the establishment. He is the establishment, just with more social anxiety and better spreadsheets. He's not here to transform. He's here to dust the shelves and reorganize policies alphabetically. By the end, Starmer wasn't a man, he was a cautionary tale. Proof that charisma can't be downloaded, conviction can't be faked forever, and a nation can't be led by the least offensive option in the room. Rogan mocked him like a gym coach watching someone bench press bubble. Rap, while Vance dismissed him with the ease of a Southern lawyer swatting away a flimsy argument. Starmer wanted to be a unifier. Instead, he became a human screensaver, drifting from press conference to policy rehearsal, like a ghost still searching for a backbone. And if Rogan and Vance made one thing brutally clear, it's that Britain deserves more than a personality vacuum in a suit pretending to steer a ship while quietly Googling how to look. Decisive without upsetting anyone. Starmer walked into the political coliseum, armed with nothing but a checklist and a vague sense of moderation, and was mauled by a podcaster and a senator who barely broke a sweat. Honestly, that may be the most Keir Starmer thing that could possibly happen.